Hello, everyone. So first, I just want to apologize that I can't so beautifully and seamlessly translate back and forth between English and French. The best I can do is broken German, and that's not really helpful to anyone, so sorry in advance. I'm really proud to be here in support of Google Women Tech Makers program and our global vision to achieve equality in tech by empowering women everywhere to join, thrive in, and lead the industry. Since 2014, Women Tech Makers has focused on providing visibility, community, and resources for women in tech. From being a once-a-year event at Google I/O in 2013 to now serving close to 100,000 women in nearly 200 countries, we are a community made for you and by you to change the ratio of women in the tech industry. This is actually the 5th year that Women Tech Makers has hosted this International Women's Day event series, and we're so excited to see the growth, specifically in the number of our GDG communities and Women Tech Maker leads hosting their own IWD celebrations. And I actually just want to stop and give a quick thank you to the team here at GDG Montreal, our Women Tech Maker leads, and Laurence, who's been going back and forth on email with me to get me here. So a quick thank you to them before I continue. Yeah, thank you. So as you can see on this slide, I wanted to talk a little bit about the theme of our event series, Building a New Horizon, how I've seen women and non-binary people in the industry doing just that, and what's giving me hope for a future industry more inclusive and equitable than the one we're currently in. And just so you know, none of my close friends would describe me as a particularly optimistic person. I'm more of an always hedging, plan for failure kind of person. So you can trust that the flicker of hope that I'm experiencing this moment and expressing to you is authentic. No lies here. And also, as a side note, I want to give the standard Twitter disclaimer that the thoughts and opinions expressed in this talk, and I have a lot of them, are my own. They're not the position of my company, the company that contracts me, just to get that technicality out of the way. So, as you may or may not know, the last couple of years have been tough. They can be described as what I can only think of as a dumpster fire. And not just in tech. From hate-filled violent attacks around the world, to the loss of some of our beloved cultural icons, to that really unfortunate presidential election that we, your friends down south, are still suffering the results of. All of which, to be really honest and vulnerable with you, filled me with hopelessness and honestly a visceral rage that for a good amount of time I didn't know how to diffuse. But mostly it just made me exhausted. I spent the better part of my adult life advocating for change, from leading a student administrative group on my college campus that championed policy change, to create a more equitable experience for racial minorities, to taking a role as the director of diversity at an immersive coding school, to now my role as the partnerships manager on the Women Tech Makers team. And to see things around me backslide so quickly and completely felt like all of that work, both paid and unpaid, and you know that we do that unpaid emotional labor, was for nothing. And I know I'm not the only one who felt that way, who felt like screaming, God, I don't want to explain this to you anymore. I don't want to explain to you why your argument around women being biologically inferior and therefore not suited for STEM is asinine. I don't want to explain that to you anymore. And I didn't feel like advocating for my own humanity or why I deserved a seat at the table anymore. I just felt like I was done. And I went to see Brené Brown speak. How many people have heard of Brené Brown? A few people. If you don't know her, you should look her up. She's a writer and a researcher. She has the 5th most watched TED Talk. She does a lot of work around shame and guilt and vulnerability. And a lot of what she said at that talk inspired this talk. One thing in particular really resonated with me. She said that turning to cynicism and pessimism is such a safe way to move through the world, especially right now. And that what's truly courageous is to sit in other feelings like hope or allow yourself to experience joy. And that's really because she says that joy is the most vulnerable emotion, that when we experience it and we let ourselves experience it, we're really afraid that we'll get sucker punched by pain, that something terrible will happen, and that'll take it all away. So we hedge, like I said at the beginning, or we plan for failure, or we plan for the worst. But something happened last year. Actually, a few things happened. First, we marched. Nearly 5 million of us all over the world for women's rights. Raise your hand if you went to a march here in Montreal, a couple people. I know I definitely did last year and this year as well in New York City, where I live. Then Susan Fowler reflected on, quote, one very, very strange year at a tech company she once worked for, a blog post that went viral and started a real conversation about tech culture. Then Katrina Lake, founder of Stitch Fix, and dozens of other women entrepreneurs spoke out about the harassment they experienced from several high-profile VCs. The New York Times then published a piece with several actresses like Ashley Judd and Gwyneth Paltrow detailing the abuse and harassment they experienced at the hands of one very powerful Hollywood mogul. And the floodgates opened. Women globally posting and sharing their own stories and experiences so grievously common that nearly 10 years after Tarana Burke coined the phrase Me Too, it became a platform to expose insidious injustices, discharge our grief, and find solidarity in a commonality of a shared experience. And whether our own stories are as egregious as some of the more famous ones that have been publicized, I think we've all had that frustrating, disempowering experiences that made us question whether or not we belonged. So we could relate and see ourselves reflected in the stories shared. Because like Oprah said in her viral Emmy speech, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not a story that affects one industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race, religion, politics, or workplace. So to bring it back to tech, tech isn't built in a vacuum. Tech culture isn't built in a vacuum. All of the societal forces and systems that reinforce toxic power structures that exist in the world exist in tech because, well, tech was built by people who are socialized in this world. But that's actually what gives me hope, because if people made things the way they are, then we can unmake them and remake them in a way that's more fair and just. And I see us doing that already, slowly chipping away at the man-made boulders that want to keep us out. We're not just sharing our stories, we're speaking at or even keynoting conferences. We're sponsoring each other in the workplace and pulling each other up. We are putting ourselves up for promotion and taking giant leaps in our career. There are women-led investment firms popping up every day, investing in women-led companies like Alyssa Miller-Out at Chloe Capital, Eileen Lee at Cowboy Ventures, Natalia Obereti-Noguera at Pipeline Angels, and Arlen Hamilton at Backstage Capital. If you've never heard of any of those women, they're all incredible. Look them up. We're founding organizations to get and keep women in tech, like Rebecca Miller-Webster at Right Speak Code, like Sasha Laundry, who founded Women Who Code, Amy Wibowo from Bubble Sort Zines, Heather, Melissa, Brianna, and Laura from Ladies Learning Code here in Canada. And they're creating spaces that encourage and empower all of us to use our voice and know our worth. So I'll leave you with this one request. For this IWD celebration, and really Women's History Month in general, think about the women you know who are working to build a new horizon in tech, and acknowledge and maybe even publicly thank them on Twitter. There won't be one savior or leader who will come forth to shepherd us into a new tomorrow. It will be tough, gritty work, a slog from all of us to create something new, but I can't wait to see what's on the other side. Thank you.